They say no one makes it alone, that behind every strong person, there is always support, a hand, a voice, a safety net. But what if that isn't always true? What if some people rise, not because they were supported, but because they were left with no other choice? There's a quiet kind of strength in the world, a strength that doesn't come from encouragement, but from absence, not from being lifted, but from learning how to stand alone. Have you ever wondered why some people become incredibly self-reliant, almost emotionally distant? Why they struggle to ask for help, even when they need it the most? This isn't confidence. This isn't independence. This is something deeper, something built in silence. Today, we explore the psychology of people who rise without support. Let's begin. At the beginning, it never feels like strength. It feels like confusion. The character sits alone in a quiet room, dim light falling across his face. His arms are crossed, but not in confidence, in protection. In the background, two people are talking, laughing, connected. But he isn't part of it. You notice it slowly. Moments where your voice doesn't get answered. Questions that fade into silence. Emotions that go unseen, unheld. The character watches from a distance as others receive support so naturally. A hand on the shoulder, a reassuring word, a presence. He tilts his head slightly, that familiar smirk hiding something deeper, something unspoken. And then something shifts. Not loudly, not suddenly, but quietly like erosion. The character now stands alone at a table, solving a problem, making a decision. No hesitation, no expectation of help. His movements are calm, controlled, almost practiced, because somewhere along the way, a realization settled in. No one is coming, and when that truth takes root, you don't break. You adapt. The character straightens up, crosses his arms again. But this time, there's a different energy. Not just protection, but self-built strength. At first, doing everything alone feels temporary. The character walks down a long street, hands in pockets, shoulders slightly forward. Around him, small groups of people move together, talking, sharing, leaning on each other. But he keeps walking, not because he wants to be alone, but because he's used to it. The character sits at a desk, focused, solving problems one by one. No distractions, no interruptions. His expression is calm, almost too calm. That familiar smirk appears again, but now it feels different. Less playful, more controlled. Because when help is never offered, asking for it starts to feel wrong. You begin to answer your own questions, handle your own emotions, fix your own problems. The character pauses for a moment, looking at his phone, a message box open. His fingers hover over the screen, as if considering reaching out. Then he locks the phone and moves on, because somewhere inside, a belief has already formed. If I don't handle it, no one will. The character stands up, crosses his arms again, this time with quiet certainty. Independence no longer feels like effort. It feels like identity. Strength, when built in silence, carries a quiet cost. The character stands in a crowded room. People around him are talking, laughing, sharing pieces of themselves. The energy is warm, alive, but he isn't part of it. He leans slightly against the wall, arms crossed, that familiar smirk resting on his face. But his eyes move carefully, observing, calculating distance. Because when you've carried everything alone for so long, connection starts to feel unfamiliar. The character sits across from someone now. A conversation is happening. The other person leans forward, open, expressive. But he stays composed, controlled. He listens. He nods. But he doesn't open. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he was never shown how to share it. There's a moment, brief, almost invisible, where his expression softens, as if something inside wants to speak. But it passes. The character looks away slightly, resetting, returning to that safe, practiced version of himself. because vulnerability feels risky, and dependence feels dangerous. So even in the presence of others, you remain self-contained. The character stands up, slowly stepping away from the conversation, blending back into solitude. Not lonely, just alone in a way that feels normal. There's a tension inside you that no one else can see. The character sits on the edge of a bed, elbows resting on his knees, hands loosely clasped. The room is quiet, still. His usual smirk is gone now, replaced with something heavier, something real. Because even the strongest patterns don't silence human needs. A part of you wants to rest, wants someone to notice, without explanation. The character leans back slowly, staring at the ceiling. His expression softens, eyes slightly distant, as if imagining something he's never fully allowed himself to have. Support, understanding, ease. But just as quickly, something shifts. He sits up again, straightens his posture, arms crossing almost automatically. That familiar defense returns. Not forced, but conditioned. Because another voice rises. Don't rely. Don't expect. Handle it yourself. The character walks toward a mirror. He pauses, looking at his own reflection. Steady, composed, controlled. For a brief second, his expression cracks. Then it disappears, because needing someone feels like risk, like losing control, like reopening something that once went unanswered. So you stay strong, even when you're tired of being the only one holding everything together. At some point, something inside you begins to shift, not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because awareness quietly arrives. The character stands by a window, soft light falling across his face. Outside, people move together, talking, laughing, existing in ways that once felt distant. He watches, but this time, something is different. Not comparison, not distance, just understanding. The character slowly uncrosses his arms. A small movement, almost unnoticeable. His posture softens, just slightly, not weak, just less guarded. Because the truth begins to settle in. You were never meant to do everything alone. You just learned how to. The character walks outside now, passing by people instead of avoiding them. His pace is steady, his expression calm, but lighter. There's still strength in him, still independence, but it no longer feels like a wall. It feels like something he carries, not something that isolates him. Because strength was never about never needing support. It was about surviving without it, and maybe allowing it when it finally appears. If this reflection felt familiar, if something quiet inside you is touched while watching this, then maybe you've known this feeling longer than you realize. The weight of handling everything alone, the silence behind your strength, the quiet habit of not expecting, because you learn not to. The character stands still, looking ahead, not rushed, not tense, just present. And for once, he isn't bracing himself for everything alone. And you should know this. There is nothing wrong with you for becoming strong this way. It made sense. It protected you. It carried you further than anyone saw. But you were never meant to carry everything forever. And even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it feels uncomfortable, you are still allowed to not do it alone. If you'd like to stay connected to reflections like this, a space where we explore the hidden corners of the human mind and the quiet truths people rarely talk about, you're welcome to stay. And if you feel like sharing, you can leave your thoughts below, or simply sit with this feeling. Both are enough. Take care of yourself.